And bringing you the low quality program you've come to enjoy. Let's look at what is economics and the introduction to economics. Move my screen up a little bit here. So hopefully I'm not in my own way. My cat bothering me here. Okay. Economics. What is economics? Key question to begin with is the obvious. Before getting into the subject, there are many correct answers here. There are many answers that get at the right idea. But if you ask people what they think about what economics actually is, they'll usually say something like money. They'll usually bring up things like trade, business, investment, personal finance, the stock market. All of these things are parts of the whole of economics. But what is the science of economics itself? And I try to put things into a very simple uh, sentence that has a lot packed into it, but that you can boil it down to a sentence. And someone asks you what economics is, you can explain it to them. So this sentence, every word here is carefully chosen to talk about what economics actually is. And here's the sentence. And this is a conglomeration of a few things. Economics is the impact of human action on scarce resources that have alternative uses. Let me say it again. Economics is the impact of human action on scarce resources that have alternative uses. Now, every part of that sentence is carefully chosen and constructed, and as those who are familiar with the study of economics probably realize, this is not original to me. This is a blending of the work of Mises and Thomas Sowell and others to get at the key idea, the core of what economics is at its center. Economics deals with, let's deal with each part of this sentence, deals with the reality of scarce resources. This is law number one of economics. Economics would not exist without this reality in the world called scarcity. And scarcity is the inability to satisfy all our wants or needs. It's that there are limitations to what is available in the world, to what is available around us, to what we can do with resources. We want more than there is, and human wants and needs even are infinite. Now we think, okay, well, how can needs be infinite? You need water, you need food, you need maybe clothing or some type of basic shelter or something like that. But as economies develop, our wants develop for more things, and it has nothing to do with being greedy or selfish. Most economies in history did not have clean drinking water. We would consider that a need. We would consider that a basic human necessity. It's not greed to want it. It just shows that human wants can be endless, and there are limitations on that reality, which come in with scarcity. Thomas Sowell writes in his book, Basic Economics, which is a great read for learning about economics in a simple way, but with powerful examples. He writes, without scarcity, there is no need to economize, and therefore no economics. So if there was just unlimited amounts of everything, it didn't matter what it was, how much of it we used, it didn't matter if we were wasteful or not, then there would be a no economics. The economics has to deal with the science of what's going on with scarce resources. And these are resources that have alternative uses. The reality is, all resources, I'm going to say that all with an asterisk, in a qualified sense, all resources can be used, or raw materials or anything can be used for something else. So let's take something simple like milk. Let me try to use here. I was going to use my drawing tool, but Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. Let's take something simple like milk. I'll just talk about it. So you go out, you milk a cow, you have milk. Milk can be used for drinking milk. Milk can be used for cheese. Milk can be used for sour cream. And milk can be used for ice cream. Those are four alternative uses for milk. Well, how do we know what the right amount of all of those things are? Should we just split it into four equal parts? You get 25% cheese, 25% drinking milk, 25% sour cream, 25% ice cream, right? And now I want you to think about your real life in terms of what you buy, what you use. Do you use as much ice cream as you do cheese? Do you use as much cheese as you do milk? Which ones last longer? Uh, Ice cream can stay in the freezer for a long time. Cheese can last a while. Milk can last a certain amount of time, but they differ. And some people hardly drink any milk at all, but some people drink a lot of milk. So should just equal parts of each alternative be produced? How do we figure out? Economics has to deal with a near impossible question of how much of each resource should be allocated to each of its many uses. There's a lot of potential, and a lot of that potential can be realized with something like milk, and that I've just mentioned four things. But how do we figure out what is the right amount of milk for each person in an economy? And each person may value milk differently, and they may drink milk at different levels, and they may like milk when they're younger and not like it when they're older. And some people are lactose intolerant, and so they avoid all these products. So if we give them, if we set up a board to make these decisions, it would be a near impossible task. I think it would be an impossible task for a board of anyone to plan this and figure out according to people's needs and calculations in their own mind about what they want and what they need. So economics has to solve this problem. How do we do it? So that's the fact of scarce resources of alternative uses. So it can be kind of scary. The reality that we have not enough, we have scarcity, and that you might end up, if you don't allocate it correctly to each of its alternative uses, you might end up with wasted resources, wasted milk, wasted cheese, wasted sour cream, wasted ice cream, or not enough. So the stakes are fairly high. And it's the study of human action. This is taken from an economist who wrote a book by this title named Ludwig von Mises. And he pens this book in economics, but he starts with a principle that's called a priori. And this Latin term means that it's knowledge that is true and that is self-proving. That by denying the truth, you prove it. Now, here's the groundbreaking truth of economics. Humans act. That's it. Humans act. That's significant. And even if you deny that, even if you don't believe that's true, even in your denial, you're taking action. Economics is the impact of human action on scarce resources that have alternative uses. This another word for this, more academic or fancy word for this is praxeology. It's choices about how to use scarce resources based on incentives. An incentive is a reason or motive for doing something. And we all have them, we all work by them all the time, and then we make choices. Because of the reality of scarcity in the world, economics is all about choices based on our incentives. And it's about use of means to achieve an end. Now, here's the deal. Are human beings rational? Clear question we need to ask here. Because you can have someone who smokes cigarettes but who knows it's bad for them. Is that irrational behavior? Well, in economics, rationality doesn't mean that we always agree with how people behave. Economics doesn't put value judgments on those type of things. It's a science about what is. It's about how people actually act. It's not prescriptive, it's descriptive. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't prescribe, it doesn't tell you what to do. It just describes what's going on in the world. Now, think about people in a culture where they maybe are going through a drought and a famine. And in order to try to get water, they go out and they dance. They participate in a rain dance. Now, we may disagree with their method, but are they irrational? Economically, the answer is no, they're not. They're not irrational. They're following human action. They're following what is called means to end thinking. They're using means, rain dance, to achieve a certain goal, a certain end, rain. Now, we may not agree that that's the best way to do it, but they are thinking of what they want to do. You don't have to agree that the person who knows smoking is bad for him but smokes cigarettes. You don't have to agree with that behavior morally or health-wise or anything else. But you have to recognize that person likes smoking and smoked, therefore was using means to end thinking, was being rational in that sense. And so economics of human action doesn't just come up with a theory of how people are, but it comes up with a theory that begins with simple baseline truths. Humans act, and then it watches them, and it's just human action is distinguished from just theory. It's how did people actually behave in the real world. So that's human action. This is what I often use for my classes. It's a video of this girl. You can watch it another time on YouTube, talking to the Santa Clarita City Council in California about not having the McRib. And so this is an example I use in class talking about uh, economic calculation. Uh, why doesn't McDonald's have the McRib all the time? You know, it's not yearly that it comes out. It actually comes out at a sporadic time. Not everyone likes it. Some people like it. So if everybody liked it and demanded it all the time, it would be on the McDonald's menu all the time, presumably. But why don't they have the McRib all the time? Well, here's one reason why. Just as an example, pork prices dropping below a certain amount allows them to bring back the McRib. So calculations are being made, means to end thinking uh, is being employed in order to uh, bring about a certain result, in order to bring about more customers, in order to bring about more profit. And businesses are calculating what people will want, how affordable and cost effective it will be for them to produce what people want at certain times, and when they're going to maximize profit. Okay, that's how they can figure out and make judgments as far as to when people will want certain things, when, where, how much, when, all this stuff that has to be calculated, that no one could sit in a room and just figure out themselves how much is the right amount. And they do that through prices. They do that through other mechanisms, through voluntary trade, through supply and demand, and through assessing risk and cost benefit analysis. There's all the sorts of these things that will tie together. But just going back to the basics of what is economics. Economics is the impact of human action on scarce resources that have alternative uses.